Hey, everybody. On this channel, we always are talking about the science of homes. And if you have not seen it, there is a video that I'm linking on screen now of our friend Anil, and specifically all about his house, which is infested by mold. And it was a brand new house. It was a production build. So in this video, we're going to go through the legal case that Anil has built against this builder. Also, please do stay tuned to the end because we will do an update with Anil over Zoom to get the latest on what is going on. This is finally looking like it's coming to a resolution. And so we're going to hear about the final steps.
We're currently in a lawsuit against 7 different parties, which include the largest builder in the US and 6 of their subcontractors. There were some foundational building defects in our house, including the envelope of the house, allowing warm, moist air into the house. But then what exacerbated that was the air conditioning system, which was completely oversized for the house and also leaked out more air than it brought back into the house. So it negatively pressurized the house.
You sound like a building scientist. Are you a building scientist?
I'm not a building scientist. I wish I did not know this much about building science. I educated myself about building science because of what I've experienced with this house. But on the flip side, I am happy that I learned this information because I know that the next house that I build for my family is going to be a safe house. Going through this process with the attorneys and with the builder, one thing I've learned is there is no winning. Nobody wins at the end of this. Everything's a compromise. From what my attorneys have explained to me, if they're doing their job right, we never go to arbitration. We never go to trial. Everything is settled outside of court. And any settlement outside of court is for some amount less than what you've paid out of pocket or what your damage model is. Can we be whole? It's possible to come out of this hole. It's possible to break even. As long as we don't lose, then that's a good thing. My wife and I are now 3 years into this battle with the builders. And I think if I were to give somebody some guidance or some advice, the first thing I would say is first think about, do you have an attachment to this house? If you have an attachment to this house, it may be worthwhile approaching an attorney and trying to get the builder to do what's right and remediate the house. If you do not have an attachment to the house, I might suggest trying to wholesale that house to somebody to sell it immediately, disclosing that there is a mold issue in it, and just get out of the house. Reason being is that it's a long battle. It's an expensive battle. And aside from the length of time and the expense of it, your life is essentially on hold for that time. You're paying a mortgage on the house that you can't live in. You're paying rent somewhere to live, or you're paying another mortgage on another house that you're living in, and it gets very expensive. And then you've got your attorney's fees on top of that, your expert fees. It gets to be very, very expensive. So it's really a very personal decision for each person, and a lot of it stems from, are you really attached to the house or not? And then how much can you bear as far as financial, time, and your life just standing still for years on end? So consumer protection in the state of Texas is a myth. There is a process for it, but what we found out is there's no penalty to the builder if they don't follow it. The process in the state of Texas is that if we bring a claim against a builder, the builder is supposed to make a good faith effort to try to rectify that claim. And the builder's response to us was, we don't think there's an issue. So I've got an engineering background. I'm fairly analytical, as is my wife, and I'd like to keep very good records of everything, whether it's purchases I make, modifications, warranties. I mean, everything I scan in and it's in some sort of electronic format. Because of that, I'm lucky enough to have every single communication I have with the builder, every single service call that was done on the house, every communication that was done with their Better Business Bureau during the whole time that we were in this house. And that is really providing a lot of information to my attorney to build a very, very strong case against the builder. Between emails, test reports, photographs, the attorney has over 2,500 pages of documentation now in our case. And I just implore on everybody, keep records, keep very good records, be very organized, scan everything in somewhere if you're not using a folder type system, an old school filing system, but keep those records. Don't take anyone's word on anything. Get everything in writing, whether it's an email or an actual letter. Don't rely on text. Don't rely on phone calls. If it is phone calls and you're allowed to record those phone calls in the state you reside in, record those phone calls. You just have to be faster than the slowest animal. I mean, I kept I kept the records I kept were better than the records that were passed on from builder to builder, which in a way makes sense if you think about it, because a builder is really trying to shed their liabilities when they're marketing themselves to another company, and they don't want to look bad. They don't actually want to. Think about it. If you're looking to purchase a company, you want that company's books to be really good. You want them to be profitable. You don't want any liabilities on their books, and then you're going to go and purchase them. Well, I believe that's what Ryland Homes did with this house. Is they essentially wiped it off their books. They shredded all the records on it and made things look good. One thing that we learned during this process is that the builder is really a large corporation that has shareholders that they want to keep happy and that they want to pay dividends to, and they want to keep their stock price going up, and they want to make sure that they close on houses quickly at the lowest cost with the largest margin of profit. They're not really in this business to build good quality homes. They're not in this business to build performance homes. They're not in this business to build safe homes. They're in this business to build quick houses, to get people into that have nice granite countertops and nice floors and nice paint, but under all that mascara and lipstick, it's a mess. The houses are an absolute mess. Before we got to the point of going to arbitration, we tried to do what's called an RCLA process, which they have in Texas. It is a consumer protection law that is developed by builders, so it's very builder friendly. And that process is between the homeowner and the builder, using attorneys and trying to get the builder to resolve your issues for you. During that process, you open up your home to inspections. The builder can come in and do as many inspections as they want, given enough notice. That time is now passed. So at this point in time, the builder is not allowed to come back into our house and do any additional inspections. But I don't believe they actually understood the testing that they did, because they documented test results that support our side of the case.
So basically, when we started this process, we as the plaintiffs provide a number of inspection reports to the builder saying, this is what we think is wrong with the house, and this is what we would like you to do to fix it. They then have an opportunity to inspect our house, and at which time they send out a ton of inspectors as well, but HVAC inspectors, engineering inspectors, mold inspectors, just everybody. They sent plumbing, gutters, roofing, every single subcontractor that they had work on the house, they sent out. So as a result, we got a dump of documentation, hundreds and hundreds of pages of inspection reports. And what I was trying to do was I was trying to respond to what the builder had sent us, which is all these reasons as to why we were at fault for what had happened in the house, and how they're not at fault, and it couldn't possibly be anything that they did. So I had some ideas in my head about what a response should be, and I put some information together. And then Corbett, I contacted you to consult with you to, number one, double check kind of my train of thought and my logic, and to have a professional actually look at those reports and see if there was any information that I was missing. And there indeed was something that I was missing. You came across a photo which was essentially like a diamond in the rough, or a gold nugget that we found.
Wait, show me those manometers again.
Yep.
Downstairs unit on, upstairs unit off. Scroll down a little bit for me, please. Show me the other ones. Oh my God. Okay, downstairs unit on, upstairs unit off. Ooh.
I believe it's called a differential pressure measurement of the house, comparing the outside pressure to the inside pressure in 4 different situations. One situation is with no systems in the house on at all. So that's just showing like a baseline level of pressurization or depressurization in the house. One with both HVAC units turned off, but every single exhaust fan in the house, of which there were 7, I believe, between all the bathrooms, the laundry room, etc., as well as the kitchen hood exhaust fan was turned on. They were all turned on at the same time. They took a measurement of depressurization of the house, and then they shut all that off. They did a measurement with just the upstairs HVAC on, and then they did a measurement with just the downstairs HVAC on. And the interesting data that came out of that photograph was that if you took the number that they came up with for the downstairs air conditioning or downstairs HVAC being on and the upstairs HVAC being on, and added those two together as if they're running at the same time, which happens a lot in the house, that far surpassed the number, the depressurization number that was shown when all the exhaust fans were turned on, which is for two people living in a house with that many bathrooms, never happens. It proved the fact that, sure, we did upgrade some of these exhaust fans, but they don't flow what they're rated to flow. For example, the kitchen exhaust fan was rated at 2,000 cubic feet per minute. It absolutely did not flow that much based on the measurements that were taken by the builder. So that was a really important photo that you dug up.
Yeah, that was an exciting 4.5 hours.
It was fun. I mean, a lot of people will say I'm nuts, but I thought it was fun.
The builder brought to our attention that some of the causes for the issues that we're having with the house are the addition of the media room in the house, as well as a number of modifications that were made to the HVAC system, including a ton of zoning that was done on it. The interesting thing is we bought the house with the media room, and it was Ryland Homes who did all the zoning on the HVAC system based on our complaints about maintaining humidity and temperature in the house. So the interesting thing is that this house the liability of this house went through a lot of different hands. And at this point, I don't believe that the largest builder in the US who we're suing at the moment actually knows anything about the house, what was included in the house when it was built, what was done to the house by the previous builder or anything. So the part that's a little scary about that is going back to this record keeping that I did. Had I not kept those records, there would be no way to prove that these things were done by the previous builder. So part of the process when you have an issue with your house to bring to the builder is you have to prove to the builder that there is a problem. Most builders, or at least in our experience, the builders that have owned this house or have had the liability of this house haven't believed the issues that we've had. We either had to bring them in, they had to look at those issues and then confirm they actually exist. So as part of that process, the builder that we're suing right now brought in forensic experts. They brought in HVAC contractors, building science experts, mold remediation experts, mold testing experts. And during all of that testing, they did a number of tests. And the interesting part about the tests that they did was that in their test report, they documented the deficiencies that we pointed out were the issue of this house to begin with. So they've actually almost proven our case for us. They had their opportunity to do their testing. They did a ton of testing, and now we have to rely on those results.
So then I get an email from my attorney saying, can the defendants come and inspect the house on XYZ date? And I said, I'm disinclined to allow them to inspect our house because they've passed the deadline by which they have to inspect the house. And my lawyer's response was, well, then they're going to ask for a continuance, and this case is probably going to go on for another year. So what we learned is the deadlines set by the arbitrator are arbitrary and don't mean anything. We, of course, want to resolve this as quickly as possible. So we had to agree to allow the builder to send inspectors again. Something happened on a previous inspection that bugged me. One of the inspections showed a duct disconnected in the attic. That inspection was done on the same day as an inspection by another subcontractor, which had a picture of the exact same ductwork where that duct was connected. The builder's inspectors were the only inspectors that were in the house on that day. Right? They actually sabotaged something. So I brought up this concern with my attorney, and my attorney promised me, guaranteed that everything would be fine and nothing like this ever happens. And I said, you can't guarantee that. It happened already. So it's going to happen again. So I took it upon myself to find out exactly how many inspectors were coming to the house and hire an individual videographer for every single inspector that was coming to the house. 15 videographers total across 2 companies to follow that inspector around and document exactly what they did, where they went in the house, to make sure, number one, to try to prevent them from sabotaging anything. Number 2, to have a record of actually what they're looking at. So if they bring up certain points in court about that inspection, we can show them in the inspection, well, no, you didn't really inspect this. Look at the video. My real concern was a sabotage, but what ended up happening was all these inspectors got so flustered that they did not spend the time they were supposed to do their inspections. So they had 4 hours to do inspections, and the longest inspection was maybe an hour. They got all confused, got all out of order. So the first thing they did was open the attic, which then precluded them from doing any sort of mold spore testing, because now you have the attic open, so it's not going to be accurate. So now they couldn't do another mold test. The inspectors that did show up were so flustered by the videographers following them that they would leave for large portions of time and go down the street and talk. I actually had one of the defendant's attorneys complain and say, this is an invasion of privacy. You're blocking attorney-client confidentiality by having these people followed around. And I said, you've entered my private residence. I have every right to record anything that happens on my private residence.
I think in Texas, you're allowed to shoot people that come into your house
basically
uninvited.
yeah. And I didn't know if this was the case. It just sounded good. So I said, you're on my property. I have the right to record what happens on my property. If you would like to have a conversation just between you and your client, you can leave my property and have that conversation. My attorney that was there thought that hiring those videographers was just worth every penny, and he's going to recommend it to every single one of his clients going forward.
The really sad part of this situation is that at the end of the day, the builder is not liable for any of this. It's their subcontractors that are liable. It's the subcontractors and the subcontractors' insurance companies that are going to end up paying the bill at the end of the day. So the builder gets off scot-free and continues to do these same kind of building practices for other people.
Do you feel bad for the subcontractors?
I think it's a catch-22. The subcontractors are in a bad place, but they're also in that business. No one's going to pay you the amount of money that you really should get paid to do a quality job. No corporate builder, no production builder is going to do that. It just doesn't happen. So it's almost created this industry of subpar work. It's just acceptable subpar work, and that's just the way it is for a house like this. My advice, if you're in a situation where you have to buy a production built house, if you can, visit the house every day. Educate yourself about basic building practices, educate yourself on basic building science, watch them like a hawk, and then move out of that house in 5 years. You will have problems in 5 years. It's just, again, the way these houses are built, the type of materials that are used, they don't allow for mistakes, and there are a lot of mistakes made because building a house is a complicated process. And if you don't have somebody there watching that process and stopping and halting work when it needs to be halted to fix an issue, instead of just trying to meet a closing schedule, you will have problems.
How do we solve this problem?
How do we solve the problem of consumer protection? It's tough. We have better consumer protection in a lot of other industries. The automotive industry, we have great consumer protection in. Consumer toys, household goods, we have great consumer protection in. But for some reason, and I don't understand why, the one thing you spend the most money on, the biggest purchase you make in your life, and the one place that you spend the most time in, has almost no consumer protection. What can we do to fix that? I think it's got to start at the federal level. We can't have a state-to-state legislation to try to put different rules in different states. I mean, we're all human. We all have basic needs in this world. We all need a safe home to live in. So why don't we have one blanket federal level of consumer protection for all of us?
Now we've gone through the bulk, we hope, of the challenges that you've had to go through legally, and we are nearing the finish line. What happens at this point?
So what is currently happening with our case is depositions are being taken. And what depositions are, it's when our attorneys get the opportunity to depose or interview and take testimony of the defendant's experts or the defendants themselves. And the defendant's attorneys have the opportunity to do that same thing with our experts. So currently, we've been going through all of our experts getting deposed for 1 to 2 days of interviews. So far, that from what I've heard from the experts, those interviews are going very well. The builder's attorneys are quite unorganized and don't really have a focus to the questions they're asking or where they're guiding the conversation. Arbitration was supposed to be the week of January 9th, but we've always known from the beginning that's right after the holidays, and it's probably not going to happen, which is what we found out. It's going to get pushed back. Our attorney's telling us that hopefully everything is wrapped up by the end of April. Fingers crossed. So yeah, our mediation was pushed back to the 20th. That was supposed to be last month. Our arbitration is pushed back even further. We don't know exactly why.
Okay. Well, we'll be thinking of you, and a lot of people who are watching will be thinking of you. So if you are following Anil and Nalima's story, make sure that you're subscribed, because we will post updates here. If you want to have private conversations with us when we hang out together with all the other Patreon supporters, which Anil is one of, We do that every 2 weeks. And so you can just join our Patreon membership. And we have like great conversations about, like, Anil is not the only person who's doing amazing things with homes. That group is full of people who are like just on the fringe of how cool you could be as a homeowner. So Anil, thank you very much. Please say thank you to Nilima as well for letting us borrow you one more time in the evening here.
Thank you. Thank you both for giving us a platform for our story and for getting this out there. Like if we can help 1 or 2 people avoid this situation, it'll all be worth it, really.
I feel that. All right, cool. You guys comment below if you have things to add, questions to ask, and I'll be watching those comments. I'll drag them over every now and then to answer some stuff. Tune in next time.